All right, so we are recording, and we'll go ahead and get started with our celebrations. All right, and the little dancing characters. Celebrations. Celebrations in any way, shape, or form. Yourself, your family, your colleagues, your students, anything we can celebrate. Volunteers. Actually, we have 23 team members. So check out let's go ahead and put it in our chat box. So if everyone can go ahead and put in a celebration, be it big or small, and don't enter it until I say go so we can check out a waterfall of things, okay? So we're working on putting in a celebration. All right, so again, giving us a minute to type in any celebration, and then when it counts to 3, we'll do a waterfall. So if you just joined us, go ahead in the chat box, type in a celebration, personal, professional, family, whatever you like. And in about a minute, I'll call it and we'll do a 1, 2, 3 waterfall. So we're typing in a celebration into the chat box, and when I count up 3, we'll go ahead and click enter and check everybody's celebration out. All right, about 30 more seconds. All right, let's go ahead and click. I think that's 30 seconds. Let's click on 3. 1, 2, 3. Yay! Oh, cool. More students completing Lexia. All students in PE participating. We're persevering and work through multi-digit multiplication. Awesome day with my students. Roman did not cry today. Yay! Completed fast bridge training. Congratulations, Brooke. Ooh, a new front patio porch on our house. Cool, Jordan. Adriel hasn't cried for about 3 weeks now. Yay, Adriel! He literally cried for 5 weeks, right, Miss Echeveste?
He did, but he hasn't cried for a while, so I'm so happy.
Oh, he looks so happy in the morning, Elizabeth. It's so cool.
There's some people and they're in the wrong meet because Jorge's in our room and there's a bunch of people in a different meet right now. They went to the wrong one.
Maybe the one that they went to, the one I invited them to next month. So let me see if that's where they're at. Hold on, everybody. Let me see if I can figure it out.
They're coming now.
Okay, thank you. That might be the case that they're in the one I sent out as I was planning other ones. Thank you, Elizabeth. Johnny went on a hot air balloon. That is so awesome, Johnny. All right, cross it off his bucket list. And then Sarah did share. Her lab had 7 puppies. I remember that. So cool. Helen had the house to herself all day. Cool.
Ew, not Helen. Come on, don't say that.
Oh, I apologize. It's Nani. And Zaina, you went to see Hamilton. Where, Zaina? Where?
I went to the Pantages. It is the theaters. It's just worth going to see the theater itself. If you saw nothing at all, just walking around, it's beautiful. It was lovely.
Oh, I gotta go check that out then. I would like to go see the Hamilton. It's just gets these great reviews. And then I mentioned it today in the morning meeting.
I
Morning
know.
message.
When you did it in the morning message, I shared my pictures with the kids. I've got the playbill and me inside the theater, and it was neat.
That is so cool. What a great connection you were able to make. Heather, your student had a great day. Thank you so much for sharing. And Viviana, they had a paper plate STEM project. Ooh, I'd like to go check that out, Viviana. That would be cool.
It was a grade level. We all did it all second grade, and they all came out amazing.
Oh, I'm gonna go visit all of you then. Check out that paper plate. And of course, more students complete Lexia. And every student brings their laptop every day. Woohoo, Jennifer, that's all awesome. All right, thank you so much, everyone, for sharing. Okay, we'll go ahead and move on to our next item on our agenda. As I like to share, we serve the whole child. That is our why, with a focusing on building those 21st century skills in order for all of our scholars to be productive and world-ready citizens. I did share the agenda, and in the link for this today's staff meeting, you'll find the agenda link and also the title of a story that I'm going to read to us today called Kyle. Dean, can you go to the next slide before we go on to Kyle? I just want to make a connection that the work we are doing, of course, connects to our 6 exceptional systems. And to go ahead, Dean, to equity here in RUSD. That it is accomplished when access is based on need and every student is provided with what they individually require to learn and succeed to fulfill their academic and social advancement. So the next item, we have our equity goal. Our equity goal here at Highgrove is that by the end of this school year, we will have engaged in the book study, Shattering Inequities, and we're developing a plan for strengthening school culture and climate to ensure that we put in place equitable practices and ensuring students' well-being and academic success. We'll measure our goal with the staff participation of reading together the book and our responses and developing our plan for next steps, staff and student and parent survey, and that the impact will be that all community members experience a welcoming environment. I did share that we had information about Oranda. So next slide.
Sorry, are you talking to me?
Yeah.
Sorry, the custodian came in.
And as we've also engaging in parts of Rebound Module 2, that teachers have the greatest impact on learning. So with that in mind, we're launching into a Shattering Inequities. Efficacy is the belief that your efforts make a difference. So again, back to you as the teacher in the classroom, you have the greatest impact when it comes to students learning. So I have a story called Kyle's Story that I'm going to read to us. And you do have a copy of it in the link in the today's staff meeting link. So Dean, I'm going to go ahead and just open it myself. You don't have to remove the slide. I'm going to go ahead and open it myself. And let me make sure I can do this correctly. All right. Okay. If you are able to see Kyle's story, can you just raise your hand in the little stat under in the on your screen, right? So that I can see that you can see the selection. Like I just did, I put my hand up. All right, cool. Thank you. Okay, awesome. So I'm gonna go ahead and read this selection. This story actually comes directly from Shattering Inequities. Kyle was never a star student, but he got by. A quiet and shy boy, he managed to get passed from grade to grade without much notice. He realized early on that if he just stayed out of trouble and turned assignments in, his teachers would be satisfied and he could earn C's on his report cards. He was the second of 3 children who lived with their mother in a small rural town. His mom left school early to start working and was pleased that her son was doing fine in school. When Kyle was in 3rd grade, his teacher told his mother that he would be participating in morning and math program. Kyle did not hate math. He did not hate or love any subject, so he dutifully attended. He played some computer games each morning with little interaction with the teacher's aide, who opened the door when he and 10 other students arrived every day. In 5th grade, Kyle was assigned to a new teacher and was pleased to see that the 10 morning students were in his class. He was not asked to come to school early that year. Instead, the teacher told his mom that Kyle's story would be using a special math program in class for all of her students. Kyle thought nothing of it since all his classmates had the same book. He noticed that his cousin, who was in another 5th grade classroom, had a different math book. His cousin's book was newer. After a long summer, Kyle started middle school. He reported to the office the first day and received his class schedule. He was pleased to see history listed as his first period class. He had secretly enjoyed learning about American history in the 5th grade. He was one of the only students to memorize the preamble to the Constitution, though he never let on to his teacher that he had learned it. He was also fascinated whenever he saw replicas of actual historical documents, such as John Hancock's original signature and old photos. He was especially interested in the government, how the first president came to be, and how people got elected to office. He got to his first period and was relieved to see many familiar faces of students who were in his 5th grade class. He sat down next to them and shared their slightly bewildered first day of middle school looks. As he moved through his day, he noticed that most of his friends were in all of his classes. What a relief. His last period was math. His teacher seemed to kind of explain that they were lucky. This class was an easy A because they would be reviewing 5th grade math. She passed out the books and Kyle noticed that it looked a lot like the math book his cousin used the year before, but it was brand new. He would make sure to use a book cover to keep it nice all year. Kyle's middle school experience seemed okay. He learned that grades mattered to people much more in middle school and that passing was anything above an F. So Kyle was passing middle school. Still on the shy side, he wanted to play little sports at school, or maybe join the history club or the future teachers club. Maybe he'd like to teach history one day, but none of his friends were involved in those activities and he felt uncomfortable around unfamiliar people. So he just went to school every day, turned in homework, and continued to pass his classes. As he crossed the stage at the 8th grade promotion ceremony, Kyle imagined what high school would be like and decided that it would be different. He decided to tell his high school counselor about his secret interest in history and his idea about becoming a history teacher. Maybe he could teach at his own middle school. Maybe he would even run for a student body office. That would be something. The first day of high school, Kyle reported to the office for his class schedule. He was confused to see that he had no history class. He had all the regular subjects and 2 electives called life skills and high school success, but no history. While that was disappointing, he was comforted to see so many familiar faces in his classes throughout the day. His 6th period math class was interesting. The teacher was young and energetic. This was his first teaching job, and he was very happy to be at that school. Kyle knew that 9th graders at his high school took algebra. His book was called Readiness for Algebra. His cousin's book was called Algebra, College Prep, but algebra is algebra, he guessed. At the end of the 9th month, Kyle received a call slip to his counselor. His counselor seemed very nice. Since he was passing all of his classes, Kyle intended to tell her about his interest in history, his plans for a career in teaching, and his hopes of running for school office in the spring. But before he got a chance, the counselor told him that she was meeting with all students who were at risk of not graduating. Not graduating. She told him that many students that came in the Title I program. What program? With the history of poor test scores. Huh? Often had trouble passing the high school graduation exam. You have to pass a test to graduate from high school? She was also worried that he might not complete the required high school coursework for graduation unless he attended summer school each year. As it turns out, Kyle was on a different track from other students. Though he never realized it, in retrospect, he suspected. Kyle had trouble in math as early as 2nd grade. As a result, he was identified Title I, which meant the school had to give him extra support. Also, because his family sometimes spoke Spanish at home, he was considered an English learner and had to get extra help for that too. Even though Kyle almost never spoke Spanish himself, his label put him into the certain classes and kept them out of others. The morning program was supposed to provide that extra support and close his math and EL gap, but it did not. His elementary school grouped all the 5th grade Title I students into one class to provide them extra support. That was supposed to close the gap, but it did not. The middle school placed students in pathways based on 5th grade test scores, so Kyle and the other at-risk students were grouped together for math, which by virtue of master's scheduling constraints, grouped them together most of the day. Finally, the high school used test scores and teacher recommendations for placement in 9th grade courses. Based on his middle school record, Kyle was placed in less rigorous courses. To make room for those helper classes, history was deferred that year. That day, the counselor, he learned that biology and chemistry were required courses, but that he could not take them until he took algebra and geometry. It turns out that algebra prep doesn't count for anything but elective credit. He learned that the high school graduation exam was administered to 10th graders and contained middle school and high school material that he never studied in his classes. He saw that his electives and lower level classes took up spaces other students were using to graduate on time. For the first time, he felt very out of place and different from other students. He let the counselor talk, count credits, show him summer school schedules, and list of courses, testing dates, and addresses to local continuation high schools and adult schools. When she finished, she asked if he had any questions. No, thank you. As he left the office, he realized he forgot to mention that he loved history. Kyle attended summer school, was transferred to an alternative program, and then one day stopped going to school. In the chat box, please share your thoughts, what resonates with you, and what a bit of his experience that makes it inequitable. What about his experience that makes it inequitable? We'll take some time to share your thoughts, please. Another minute so everyone can share. Again, input your thoughts. Well, what about, what is it about his story that is inequitable? Get another 30 seconds to input your thoughts, please. All right, so I want to share out loud if several of them, right? But I like to start with Zaina's thoughts. The educators forgot to talk to him and find out how he felt about school. They never made him a partner in his own learning. To me, that just resonated, so powerful. And several of you touched upon that student was never informed and told, because this is where you're at. Let's work together. He was not taken into consideration. This is his life, and he was not taken into consideration. These educators did not build upon his assets. Now, this is my thought, and I think one of you mentioned this too. His asset to me was his love for history and how he just enjoyed it, and he wanted to be a teacher. That's an asset. He was coming to the table with that love of that subject. So that was never taken into consideration. And that broke my heart, that, this is someone who was looking forward to being an educator, right? Marilyn shared that he was not provided the proper mentoring to understand his academic standing, right? Keenan is sharing that there were many variables that he had to endure. And he wasn't given the opportunities, Julie shares, to decide what he would do after high school. The tracking system made those choices for him. And that's definitely an unfortunate situation. And tracking, to me, is an inequitable experience. I personally, and some of you probably did this too, when you started your career maybe 20, 24 years ago, like I did, we had track systems where, I worked in the yellow track. Dean, do you remember what track you worked on?
My first year was blue, but the rest of it was red track.
Yeah. So our tracking system, for example, I am still a bilingual teacher. And I had our students who were in the Eastman Model Bilingual Program. And that schedule alone to me was frustrating. It was, to me, back then, I was frustrated. And now that I, reflect on it, it was an inequitable experience for my students, the way that schedule was set up. So Kyle is going to launch us into chapter 1 of Shattering Inequities. So I'll take us back to the slides. So the chapter, Immoral Imperative, Equity Hub, go to work and look for trouble. Very interesting that the authors start off with this, go to work and look for trouble. And in that first section, have you ever wondered, they tell us, what equity really means in education, what it means to be an equity leader, how equity leaders get started disrupting inequalities. And they share with us that most educators do not make it their business to look for trouble. Looking for trouble was precisely, though, what a hardworking Mr. Velarde, a principal, was not doing and was missing at his work at his school. If you go to the next slide. And the next section tells us that when great is possible, good is just not good enough. And I think some of you have heard probably of the book titled, it's if great is possible, good is not good enough. Okay, I have to make sure I look back at the title. I forgot it. I apologize. But anyways, when great is possible, good is just not good enough. This section talks about two schools, very similar demographics, but they experienced different results. Two schools with similar demographics, it was high poverty, high minority. Back, when they first started these principals, they had the lowest achieving schools in the district. Both principals started the same year and grew up in the same neighborhood. So they came back to give back to their community. And they had reputations for being hardworking and passionate and committed to their schools and community. Now, Mrs. Cortez's school celebrated because her school became a high-performing school after 5 years of her being there. And Mr. Velarde's efforts had not translated into academic success. Mr. Velarde reasoned that student achievement was not yet his priority, and Mr. Velarde planned on addressing achievement in his second year, but did not know how to proceed. In this section, we learned that he had been at the school for 5 years already. Next slide. There's a section called Nature or Nurture. Educational equality is the measure of fairness in a school district or school or district system. An assessment of equity answers the following question. Do all students, regardless of the zip code, have access to and the appropriate support they require to succeed in the premium education that only some currently experience? So again, educational equity answers this question. Do all students, regardless of where they live, do they have access to and the appropriate support to be successful in the premium education that only some currently experience? Now, some educators have instincts that help them identify and disrupt educational injustices. For some, though, inequities remain largely invisible or ignored. For these leaders to become equity leaders, mentors must explicitly identify inequities and engage in reflective discussions to help develop equity vision, mindset, and disposition. And equity leaders must have the will to disrupt the status quo. By the way, in the introduction of this book, it clearly states that an equity leader is all of us, every single one of us. We are all leaders. It is not just, say, the administration of school, the district coordinator, the district superintendent. It is every single one of us who steps on a school campus to ensure that our students are successful. So all of us are in that role, an equity leader. So driven by one moral imperative, their true north. They share with us, the authors, that the unwavering conviction that every student is entitled to the premium schooling currency experienced by only some. And this equity leader flatly rejects a fundamental concept that has ubiquitously seeped into the school systems and society as a whole without much challenge, that the idea that some student groups are smarter and will naturally succeed, while others aren't and won't. Again, they reject that notion. Above all else, an equity leader, the single most significant barrier to success for students with a legacy of poor academic success, is the educational class ceiling, adult and institutional belief systems that hold different expectations for various student groups. Again, that is rejected. So the notions are rejected. Then there's another notion called the inevitability assumption or belief, that sometimes schools simply are not capable of impacting negative patterns of achievement for some groups of students. That some students will prosper and will struggle. Demographic determines destiny, but equity leaders reject the inevitability assumption. Does it matter what we believe? Yes, it does matter what we believe, because beliefs manifest themselves in decisions and actions. Decisions and policy actions drive school systems. So yes, what we believe does matter, because they do manifest themselves in our actions. Not intentionally sometimes, but they do. There are actions that do manifest. The normalization of failure. When the lack of success of an individual or group of students is so commonly accepted that it no longer causes us to pause or raises issues of any sort, failure has been normalized. It sometimes looks like this or sounds like this. The situation is terrible, but you should have seen it before. I wish it were better, but it could be way worse. That's just the way it is here. Also, non-academic examples. And I ask this question to all of you, and just be self-reflective, okay? I don't want you to answer in the chat or anything like that. Just reflect upon what these non-academic examples of normalization of failure would be. Would this be accepted in another area that serves students perceived as more privileged? Neglected facilities, dirty campus, and or broken furniture. Tattered textbooks, limited teacher supplies, and or insufficient or non-working technology. Unfilled teacher positions covered by a series, of daily or short assignment substitutes. High teacher administrator turnover. Disrespectful communication and limited relationships building between school personnel and students and or parents. Lack of professionalism on the part of the school personnel regarding classroom or workplace orderliness, dress and grooming, and or body language. Acceptance of lack of appropriateness of student dress, behavior, and or language. Lack of communication with parents regarding their children's success or challenges at school. Low expectations about parent and community behaviors or interactions on campus. So those are examples of what failure might look like, where sometimes, in some places it's accepted. Now, we've talked about what this could potentially look like and what equity leaders do not accept. And Mrs. Cortez, being the principal of the other school, had her moments where she identified some really hard truths. And she recognized that some students at her school did receive an excellent education, but not all received it. And then she also recognized that some days, not every day, and not every part of the day were her students receiving that excellent education. And at some point, she questioned whether she was participating in the soft bigotry of low expectations. So she had to shift her mindset and what she was looking for. So altering her own mindset about her role as a leader was the most significant change that she put out. So she took these steps. Ensure that each student receives a high quality education without qualification. In our school good enough for our own children? Is our school good enough for our own children to attend? She asked that question of her staff. Again, is our school good enough for our own children to attend? And she posed these questions to her team. If the law required that the family members of anyone who works in a school must attend that school, would anything at the school be different? Would leaders see themselves and their mandate any differently? Would leaders spend their time differently? So she recognized that the work is complex and taxing, but also invigorating and steeped in personal and professional satisfaction. It is simply true, right, and just that every student has an equitable opportunity to acquire the benefits of premium education. She began her path. Educational justice for all is a conviction that inspires courageous action. So I pose this question to you. Lead from your personal why. So in that chat box, share with us your why. Why are you driven to promoting educational equity? So I'll give everybody some think time. Let's take about 2 minutes. Again, what is your why? Why are you driven to promoting educational equity? How about 1 more minute to share? All right, if you can just finish up your last thought and share, please. So let me just share a couple of them out loud. Kristen shares that every student has strengths and gifts. I hope to help my students see that in themselves. They are the future. Christina Cuellar shared, let me go back to yours, Christina. Everyone should have a seat at the table. Someone said to me, if you are not at the table, then you are the meal. Wow, very powerful, Christina. Everyone should have a seat at the table. Brooke shares, all children deserve quality education. I want to create love for learning for the scholars that are in my class, so they want to continue their education beyond high school. Cambria, I'm driven to promote education equity because I was the kid that was tracked because I was in special education. I want my students to have any of educational opportunities they choose. Adriana, to recognize the individual needs of each student and implement individualized education plan. And everyone deserves an opportunity. It's our job to provide that. Thank you, Beatriz. It is our job. It is our responsibility. We chose this profession. We did. And Nani, I would like every student to find their value and recognize that their value is not the same as everyone else's. They have a value. They come to the table with a lot to enrich our world. Thank you. And every child deserves our best and beyond. So thank you, everyone. This is awesome. Let me turn it over to Dina, who's going to share some more parts of the actual chapter. Looking for trouble.
Yeah, assume something is wrong, then try to prove yourself wrong. This one definitely was a tough one for me. I mean, I got a lot out of it. Rather than being pleased by a day with no emergencies, and Lord help us, that's what Miss Michelle and I talk about every morning. Assume that some students are not getting their due on any given day or time, and we just know that, and assume inequities exist, and that's hard to swallow because we have to admit it, because I know we all try super hard. Ms. Cortez shared that more than strategies, plans, activities, or interventions, the driving force behind a positive movement at her school was preceding external actions by defining her own equity disposition. So it's that whole mindset thing. Everything changed about how she spent her time once she became comfortable with assuming something can be improved every day. And I know Miss Michelle and I, we have so many conversations about how can we improve, and it's not a gotcha. It's more like, man, how can we do this better? So she made it her mission to find and address those areas, and set out each day to find out where opportunities are being missed. And she has classroom visits example and system of consequences. That's a big one, the system of consequences. You know, try to prove yourself wrong. Are we doing it right? So that's a biggie. You want me to continue, Ms. Michelle?
Yes.
Okay. Data. We've talked about this ad nauseum, I know, for years, but we really do need it to describe inequitable systems. So once you find a possible inequity, the most important step is to take action to disrupt the system that promotes inequity. And I like that. We have to take those steps. We can't just identify it. We're all good at that. We're all good at like, oh, there's a problem here, or this kid's not getting what they need, but what are we going to do with that? So she shared her concerns about school discipline practices to the leadership team. And after a lot of discussions, she was troubled because the student conduct actions needed to be documented to reveal patterns that would enable the team to help the students over time. And again, that's a hard one, you know, because we start seeing the same patterns. We see repeat offenders. Possible proportionate application of disciplinary actions for some groups. So the team devised a documentation system, quarterly reports by class, identifying which students by demographics and academic levels, who assigned the consequences, and description of consequences. And I know that all hits us like, oh gosh, am I in that, am I doing it wrong? Team developed some documentation for yard supervisors and other staff, and the results produced several disturbing patterns. Overall, the students with the most disciplinary consequences were the most, again, this is no surprise to us, among the lowest achieving students in the school. And I think that's across the board. I know several of us, I know Miss Michelle and I have been at several schools, and I know we've seen that at all schools. So to build a collective equity muscle, the data points to a sobering fact that students and districts are at risk as any other institution of systemic bias. Ms. Cortez shared the data with the staff. And this is where we're going to have to trust each other, facilitating those tough conversations in large and small groups. We've got to get to a point where we trust each other to work those out. And then some private conversations with some individuals, that's always needed. And made it clear that the story told by the data was not acceptable and the systems must change. It did take them 3 years, to have that mindset of where, hey, we're looking for trouble. What are we going to do about it? And I like this. There's a difference between looking for trouble and causing trouble. And, I'm guilty of walking that fine line. So here's 3 reflective questions. 1, are you clear about what drives you in your work? Do your daily actions as a leader always align? And then number 3, what are you doing to challenge the normalization of failure on behalf of your most vulnerable students?
So those are 3 reflective questions we're going to keep in mind as we move through, okay? Go ahead, Dee. So to wrap up the book, they placed equity actions, not the book, I apologize, the chapter, equity actions. Reframe your mindset, or let's reframe our mindset. Engage in deep self-reflection about what drives us to action as an education leader. Consider always, it is true, right, and just that every student receive the premium education currently experienced by only some. Our next action is assume inequities exist. Try to prove yourself wrong. Try to prove yourself wrong. Take the stance that inequitable practices occur regularly, whether they come to you as a problem or not. And of course, use data to disrupt inequitable systems, because every system actually is designed to get the results it is currently getting. And that's a reality. The system is designed to get that. So with that in mind, this is chapter 1. And I'm going to now share with you our next steps in regards to our actual taking survey, working with Oranda, which happens to be the organization that the authors of Shattering Inequities are part of. And we're going to join them in partnering with them so that we can learn more about ourselves and how, we can work together to accelerate our students' learning. Again, accelerate our students' learning. Our insight is critical in this process, and Oranda truly values our responses. So it helps Oranda understand the context of No Excuses University Highgrove. Here on this PowerPoint, which we'll share with you at the end of the meeting, you will have the opportunity to visit the link that's here. Dean, if you can point to the link, just point it, where you will be able to share your thoughts. And please know that this is confidential and no person will be identified in this survey, The window actually opens today, and it's open until October 18th. It's about a 20-minute survey, and please know that this will go to the entire staff, all right? Next slide. Continuing on with the next chapters, I have here the dates. And again, I will be sharing this PowerPoint with everyone so that you'll have the dates. Our next two chapters, 2 and 3, will be at our team meeting October 13th. Chapter 4 on the 18th of October at one of our staff meetings. And chapters 5 and 6 on the 27th of October. And tentatively right now on November 15th, chapters 7 and 8. And if there's a change, definitely share it with everybody, okay? Sooner than later. All right. So for any questions, any thoughts about this chapter? All right. I'm going to go ahead and transition. We have approximately about less than 15 minutes at our staff meeting. And before I transition into sharing with you a tool that we're going to be implementing this coming month, let me introduce to you Sonia Justice. Sonia, are you here?
I'm here. I'm here.
Ladies and gentlemen, Highgrove team, this is Sonia Justice. She happens to be our new team member support with our Riverside Unified School District multi-tier systems of support where leadership and I we're learning, right? And Sonia is part of the support team. So I've asked her to come on board, introduce herself. Yeah, that's right, Miss Cleveno. Sonia is from Magnolia, and Sonia and I actually go back 25 years when I started at Magnolia.
Quite a ways.
So it is so awesome to have you join us, Sonia. So go ahead, Sonia, take it away.
So thank you for allowing me to interrupt your meeting. But I was going to say, but I'm part of it now. So, but I'm not going to intrude that way and just say, I'm looking forward to working with you more. My role is definitely going to be in the support area of how can we make tier 1 instruction available for everyone? How can we sort of round the circle of, if you need tier 3, if you need tier 2, that's great, but bringing those supports down to tier 1 so that everybody can sort of have a seat at the table, as you were talking about. I saw that everyone was putting their why in the chat, so it seems like as a part of your team, I should share my why, and I'll make it brief because I know you got things to do. I feel that there are lots of ways to feel disenfranchised. There's lots of ways that a myriad of ways that you could feel like Kyle. I felt like Kyle for different reasons. Not that I had academic difficulty in school, but just I felt disenfranchised from my seat at the table. And I am certain that there were specific people in my lifetime, teachers, that reached out a mentoring hand to me and made me feel like I could do anything if I was shown a few things and if I applied myself. And, here I am 25 years later. So I just feel like, someone connected with me, and I feel like we are here to connect with others so that they can have their seat at the table. So thank you for letting me be a part of your journey, and I will be available as soon as I figure myself out. You're muted, Carolina.
Thank you, Sonia. Thank you, Sonia, for coming on board. She'll definitely be an active member of our team. So thank you again and welcome. So let me transition everyone over to the assessment tool that we're going to be putting in place for determining the needs of our English learners. It is called Last Links, and it is a nationally recognized English language proficiency assessment. It is designed to identify the needs of our English learners in the 4 domains that we address: speaking, listening, reading, and writing. If you go to the next slide, Mr. Deaver. And it assists in building a system of prevention as part of our MTSS. The earlier the intervention or prevention, the better our students' needs will be met. It's going to assist us in determining what kinds of support are appropriate for our English learners. And it will ensure that our English learners, both struggling and advanced learners, are progressing in learning the academic language that they will give them grade level access. And the multi-tier system support is important for our English learners who may have been misplaced in special education, or those whose learning differences are overlooked because they are learning a new language. So if you can go to the next slide, Mr. Deaver. So why are we implementing this assessment? Our English learners do not enter school with the language that is required to be successful in our system, our educational system. And our English learners face a double challenge. They must learn language and content at the same time. And it's the English language that they're learning. The data that we're going to receive from this tool will be specific to the academic language needs in developing your language, in language arts, in math, science, history, and social science. Mr. Deaver, if you can mute, and thank you. This assessment will predict English learners' performance on the LPAC. We will be able to pinpoint the specific language needs, and so it can help us plan integrated and designated ELD that support language, help build background knowledge, and of course, give our English learners the opportunity to access grade level core curriculum, which is level 1, tier 1 of MTSS, core instruction. So you could go ahead, Dean. This is the administration of the assessment, language assessment, okay? Who administers it? Well, EL Contact. At this time, I'm the lead, and Heather's supporting us. Classroom teachers, other designated team members such as substitutes. Please know that Claudia, Teresa, and Shireen are on board to support us with this, okay? And how do we group our students? Well, we administer the assessment very similar to the LPAC, K1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6, 8. Recommended number of students, here they are. As you can see that the maximum number of students actually is 25 students, 3rd through 12. And I do believe we have a grade level that has more than 25 English learners. I'll have to look at numbers again. Which forms to administer? So opening on October 18th, we will administer the Form C, which is the fall. Again, it opens October 18th and closes November 17th. So it's a 4-week window of assessment. Here are the estimated times. Speaking approximately 15 minutes. Listening is 30 to 35. Reading 35 to 45. And writing 30 to 35 minutes. We will administer this assessment during ELD time, because it is part of the language development. Again, we will administer the assessment during ELD time. What we'll need, of course, is the Chromebooks. Our students already have their headphones with their microphone. Yay! And there is a tool called a testing ticket, which I'm learning more about, okay? But it's something that will be printed out from the platform. That will come later. I'm going to share more information as I receive it, because I still have to attend the full training, everybody. So I'm working on that, okay? But I do want us to have a further conversation on what would be the best way during ELD time to administer this assessment, okay? So that's coming forward. Questions, thoughts, ideas? Dean, if you can go to the next slide, please. Okay, did share this information already. This is the assessment window. Right now, Highgrove has approximately 170 English learners, TK through 6th grade. There is a second round that will happen in mid-January. However, it will be primarily for upper grade students who are at risk of becoming long-term English learners. Again, at risk of becoming long-term English learners? Zaina, so classroom, hold on, Zaina, I see a question. So classroom teachers work with LAF and LPAC is the same. Can you clarify a little bit more, Zaina? I'm not too sure.
Well, I remember you said who administers the LAS, and then I couldn't hear. I didn't hear what that was, and I know that not everybody administers the LPAC, so I'm just not
Right.
sure how the LAS and the LPAC.
Yeah, 2 years ago, we did have one class team member administer the LPAC, right? And that's the idea, but I do want us to continue have this conversation with leadership, okay? I still have to go myself to the actual training on how this all works, okay? But because we have 170 students, everyone, and there's a lot of one-to-one with kindergarten and first grade, we need a lot of manpower to administer this assessment. All right. Okay, thank you, Zaina, for that question. Appreciate that. Next slide. Do I have another slide after this, Dean? I can't remember. All right, 3:13. I got all my information.
That was the last one.
So thank you for joining us, everyone. Again, we've just launched Shattering Inequities and those equitable actions. Yeah, we're assuming that every child deserves that premium education, and that we're looking to where we can improve, and of course, using the data to help us. Kim, you have a question?
I just wanted to let everyone know before you say goodbye